At this time. Yeah, well, our deadline is coming up right now in a couple of days. And I think you've just heard a lot of chatter about, what we're asking for is not sustainable for the business. And being on this side with Unrivaled, I know what it takes to run a sustainable business. So I think if they can't find a model that makes that happen, they need to put people in place who can, because we've proven that.
That statement right there just set the internet on fire. Fee's claiming Unrivaled has proven the WNBA's business model wrong after one season of operation. One season. And she's using that as leverage in CBA negotiations that could determine whether we even have a 2025 WNBA season. The confidence is admirable, but the comparison she's making reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of what these two leagues actually are.
Rival, comparing the two. And look, y'all know I support and advocate Unrivaled. I advocate for these women to be paid. I want them to get everything that they want. I want everything that they want to come into fruition. But at the end of the day, it's kind of hard to say that Unrivaled is sustainable. You only really had 1 year. You know what I'm saying? So, and then comparing it to the WNBA, the WNBA has 13 arenas, 13 owners that they have to deal with, traveling, right? I think Unrivaled is more of a convenient league. Nobody is traveling. Everybody is in one state, one arena. And not to say that that's easy to do. What they're doing is amazing. And I think the numbers came up last year where they were almost breaking even, and that's pretty good.
Let's break down what Fee's actually comparing here. Unrivaled operates in one arena, in one city, with zero travel costs. Every player shows up to the same Miami facility for every game. The WNBA, 13 different arenas, 13 different ownership groups, cross-country flights multiple times per week, and a season that runs May through October. Unrivaled reported they almost broke even in year one, which is genuinely impressive for a startup, but almost breaking even with 36 players in one location is not the same as running a profitable league with 144 players across 12 time zones. And here's what makes this particularly risky timing. The WNBA's CBA deadline is days away. The players are demanding a higher revenue share percentage, and they're standing firm on not accepting less. That's their right. But when Fee says if they can't find a model that makes that happen, they need to put people in place who can, because we've proven it is possible. That's not just confidence, that's throwing down a gauntlet. She's essentially telling the league's executives and owners that they're incompetent compared to Unrivaled's leadership.
Okay, so we had a little scare last night looking at what happened with her. It looked like she left the game early after an injury to that leg. Let's go ahead and take a look at what happened. So, just to kind of dodge copyright, I don't know if I get it or not, but this is her laying the ball up here, okay? And I believe that's Mo Billings defending her. But she comes down on the leg right there, boom, kind of hot skip. And, she's off the scene now, but she was walking just fine. Now, I'm going to fast forward just a tad bit. She gets to the free throw line. She got the foul, right? Now, a lot of people was paying attention to this look. I'll play it so it won't be so grainy here. All right, so she looked like, and she asked to come out after the free throw, right? Take a look at that, okay? So she's saying after.
Now, before we go further, we need to talk about the Aari McDonald injury scare that had everyone holding their breath last night. She came down awkward on her left leg, defending Mabre, immediately signaled to come out after her free throws, and walked straight to the locker room. The grimace on her face told you everything. This is a player who balled out last season before her injury, averaging 16 points per game as a key rotation piece for the Fever. The Fever cannot afford to lose her before the expansion draft, especially since Golden State and Toronto are going to be circling players exactly like Aari. The good news, she posted an update this morning confirming it was just a scare and she's fine. But that moment of panic was real, because we've seen this story before. Young player breakout season, awkward landing, season over. The fact that she's healthy means the Fever can breathe easier, but it also highlights how fragile these Unrivaled rosters are. One injury to a key player and your entire 3-on-3 rotation collapses.
I support Unrivaled. It's nothing like I'm trying to just push them so Caitlin Clark can play. I just don't want them to overplay their hand and understand where they're at. They were pushing and threatening and, trying to put their foot on their neck, and they turned around and lost housing. So just be careful. That's all I'm saying. Be careful. Now, I do want to show some love to Aaliyah Boston balling out. Man, we have to take a look at this footage here, man. Look at this girl going crazy. Now, hopefully I don't catch a copyright, but I have to see this. Aaliyah Boston going to work on Malanga, man. Come on, Malanga. Going to work on a good pick and roll. The Kelsey Plum Boston duo was nice. It was nice, although they lost. Shout out to my Breeze. But hey, Boston was going to absolute work. The seal off, going to work early in the paint. She looked like the veteran here. Beautiful work.
And this is where we need to examine Aaliyah Boston's performance last night, because it directly contradicts the narrative that she can't be a dominant post presence. 24 points on efficient shooting, working Mebray and Brink in the paint like they were rookies. The seal-offs were textbook, the hook shot over Brink was chef's kiss, and that block and rebound sequence showed the motor we need to see from her consistently. This is year 3 Aaliyah, not rookie Aaliyah. The aggression, the confidence, the willingness to demand the ball in the post. This is the version of AB that makes the Fever a legitimate contender. But here's the question nobody's asking. Why does it take a 3-on-3 league with no help defense for Aaliyah to play this aggressively? In the WNBA, she defers. She settles for mid-range jumpers. She doesn't attack mismatches with this kind of violence. So either the Fever's offensive system isn't maximizing her strengths, or Aaliyah needs to bring this mentality back to Indianapolis, regardless of the scheme. Because if she plays like this next season, pairing her with Caitlin Clark becomes an absolute nightmare for opposing defenses.
PEs, fam. I see you, Enrique. I see you. Enrique in the Caitlin Clark PEs, fam. Come on, man. And it's not really a big surprise. Enrique was always an advocator, but we also have one of my other favorite players, K-Mac, overseas in the Caitlin Clark PEs. At ease. All right, y'all gonna have me rapping, man. Hold on, man. K-Mac and Enrique balling out, showing some support. Now, I did see the interview on the New Heights with the Kelsey brothers. I think that's what it's called, right? But yeah, she was talking about, Caitlin Clark, that is, was talking about how there's some new technology in these shoes that's coming, in the Caitlin Clark ones, that nobody has. And I'm like, yo, hold on now. What is Nike putting in these shoes? What are they putting in these shoes, man? Are these going to be the most comfortable basketball shoes ever?
Now let's talk about what's actually working in Unrivaled, because the performances have been legitimately impressive. Paige Buchers dropped 24 points on 7 of 15 shooting, with 6 assists. Rickea Jackson added 16. Darica Hamby put up 15 with 14 rebounds. These are WNBA caliber stat lines in a compressed format, and the level of play has been higher than most people expected. But here's where the sustainability question gets complicated. The viewership numbers for Unrivaled's opening weekend haven't been released yet, and that's notable. If this league is as sustainable as Fee claims, those numbers should be public, and they should be strong. The WNBA switched how they calculate viewership last season, inflating their reported numbers significantly. If Unrivaled is using a similar methodology, we need to know. Because sustainability isn't just about breaking even financially, it's about building an audience that comes back season after season.
Great. This is her up here. I know y'all can't see the names. I'm just saying what's going on. Lexi Hall had 7 points. She shot 3 of 8. Okay day. It wasn't too crazy for her, but had 2 steals. Y'all know she supplies that defense. Stevens, one of the players that I want on the Indiana Fever coming into next year, or this year if you want to say that. 19 points, 7 of 18 from the floor, 2 of 6 from the 3, 10 boards. 10 boards. Come on, man. Out there going in. Shakira also with 12 points. Shout out to them, man. They were balling out. But hey, I got to give some love to the Breeze, man. Y'all know I said this might be my team. I said this might be my team, all right? And the youngins were getting it done, fam. Look at this starting lineup. Hold on. I want to actually slide this over, okay? I want to slide this over, fam, because I want y'all to see these names. Paige Buchers, Rickea Jackson, Dominique Malanga. Fam, this is the starting 3 for this team. Then you got Cameron Brink, the best blocker in the league. Kate Martin, a great fill-in player, a role player that could get the job done for you. And then Aari McDonald. Come on, man. We saw what Aari was doing throughout the season before she got injured, man. A great piece to a team.
And this brings us to the real tension underneath Fee's comments. She's not just talking about business models. She's talking about respect. When she says, we can't take less, it would be a diss to the people who came before us. She's making a moral argument, not an economic one. And that's where this gets tricky, because the people who came before her are also the ones who negotiated the CBAs that created the current revenue split. The previous generation of players made choices based on the league's financial reality at the time. Those choices weren't mistakes, they were survival. But Fee's generation sees a different landscape. They see the WNBA's media rights deal increasing. They see sold-out arenas. They see Caitlin Clark driving unprecedented attention. And they're asking, if the pie is growing, why isn't our slice growing proportionally? That's a fair question. But using Unrivaled as proof that the WNBA's model is broken, that's comparing apples to aircraft carriers.
Team from the floor didn't necessarily hit a three, but had 5 rebounds and 1 assist with 1 block. Dominique Malonga with 15, man, the youngins putting in that work, okay? Putting in that work. She had 14 rebounds, ridiculous. Ridiculous work, had 5 turnovers though. But yeah, they were going against our Aaliyah Boston, and Aaliyah Boston was balling out. Hayes dropped a 20-piece nugget on them. Beautiful work, man. But yeah, I'm advocating for Unrivaled. I like Unrivaled. It's a lot of people that don't necessarily like 3-on-3, and that's also kind of a concern for the sustainability. And you know, I know a lot of people like to commend the other players for the viewership that was going on in the WNBA, although we know that they switched how they're calculating viewership. The main thing is, if that wave isn't necessarily going over to Unrivaled, which I would think it would if people like all the other players, right, and are supporting all the other players, that's a concern, man. I mean, that would be kind of like some more evidence that this league might not be as sustainable as Fee thinks.
Let's talk about what we saw from the other standout performances, because this matters for understanding Unrivaled's actual product. Chelsea Gray went nuclear with 35 points and 8 assists. That's not a typo. 35 points in a 3-on-3 game. Kelsey Plum added 21. Aari Edwards had 23 points with 12 rebounds. These are players showing out in a format that rewards individual skill and eliminates help defense. But here's what's interesting. Kelsey Mitchell struggled in her debut, going 1 for 4 from 3 with just 13 points. And Kelsey is one of the most efficient scorers in the WNBA. So there is an adjustment period to this format, which means we can't just assume every WNBA star will automatically dominate in Unrivaled. The 3-on-3 game requires different spacing, different decision-making, different defensive responsibilities. It's a legitimate basketball product, but it's not interchangeable with 5-on-5.
You know, now at the end of the day, I want this league to be successful because it's more money in these players' pockets. I'm never trying to take money from anybody. I would never wish that on anybody, not even my worst enemies. And I don't even think I have worst enemies. And that's not to say that the fans don't like these players, because I think they have majority of the players that people like to support in the WNBA. They really have the majority of the star players, the ones who have big names. They have the majority of them. So if it's not the fact that the fans don't like the players, then it must be the fans don't like the format of that league. They don't like 3-on-3. So I don't know, man. That's why I'm saying, you know, Fee might have to come down just a tad bit, okay? I've seen a lot of people say they don't like the format of 3-on-3, and I've seen a good amount of people who say they do support ball. They just like ball, like me, you know, I just like ball. But at the end of the day, man, to say that this league is sustainable is tough, especially after 1 year. So I just want her to be aware of everything. Don't get too carried away, don't get too cocky about it. But hey, at the end of the day, I'm an advocate. I love it. Keep going, keep doing what y'all are doing. And hopefully everything works out with the CBA, man. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about all the information I dropped in this video. How do you feel about Unrivaled, Fee's statement? How do you feel about Aaliyah Boston balling out? Paige Becker's doing her thing. How do you feel about it all, man? Let me know in the comment section. I love y'all. Y'all keep it smooth.
Here's what actually concerns me about Fee's statement and why the timing matters so much. The WNBA players are in the middle of high-stakes CBA negotiations. They're threatening to sit out the season if they don't get their demands met. And now one of the league's most prominent players is publicly saying that Unrivaled has proven the WNBA's leadership is incompetent. That's not negotiation strategy, that's scorched earth. Because what happens if the CBA talks collapse? What happens if we don't have a 2025 WNBA season? Does Fee really think Unrivaled can absorb 144 players and maintain its current business model? Does she think the league can expand to multiple cities, add travel costs, and still break even? The entire premise of Unrivaled's financial viability is that it's small, contained, and efficient. Scale that up to WNBA size, and the economics change completely. And let's be honest about what almost breaking even actually means. That means they lost money in year one. Not a lot of money, apparently, which is genuinely impressive. But they still lost money. So when Fee says, "We've proven it is possible," what exactly has been proven? That you can run a niche 3-on-3 league at a small loss for one season. That's not proof of sustainability. That's proof of concept. There's a massive difference. Now, I want to be crystal clear about something. I support these players getting paid. I watch Unrivaled. I think what they're building is valuable and I hope it succeeds. But there's a difference between advocating for fair compensation and making claims that don't hold up under scrutiny. Fee is using Unrivaled's first-year performance to argue that WNBA executives are failing, and that argument only works if you ignore literally every structural difference between the two leagues. The WNBA has a players' union, guaranteed contracts, health insurance, retirement benefits, chartered flights, and a pension system. Unrivaled has high per-game salaries and equity stakes. Those are different models serving different purposes. One is a career. The other is a supplemental income opportunity. Both can exist, both can be valuable, but they're not equivalent. And here's the thing that nobody's talking about. If Unrivaled is so sustainable, why aren't they releasing viewership numbers? The WNBA broadcasts their rating. The NBA broadcasts their ratings. Every major sports league makes that data public because it demonstrates value to sponsors and media partners. Unrivaled's silence on viewership is deafening. Either the numbers are disappointing, or they're not tracking them in a way that's comparable to traditional metrics. Either way, that's a red flag when you're claiming your business model is superior. Think about the position this puts Caitlin Clark in. She chose not to play in Unrivaled, despite being offered equity and a massive salary. She said she needed rest, and now Fee is out here saying that Unrivaled proves the WNBA model is broken. So if the CBA talks collapse and there's no WNBA season, is Caitlin supposed to join Unrivaled to stay relevant? Is that the play here? Because that would be the ultimate validation of Fee's argument. Getting the league's biggest star to abandon the WNBA for a startup league. But here's what makes this particularly awkward. Caitlin's signature shoe line is about to drop. She just did an interview on New Heights talking about new Nike technology that's never been in a basketball shoe before. Rakeya Jackson and Camila Cardoso are already wearing the Caitlin Clark P's overseas. The hype is building, and all of that is predicated on her being the face of the WNBA, not Unrivaled. If there's no WNBA season, that entire marketing strategy collapses. So when Fee talks about sustainability, she needs to consider what she's actually risking. The WNBA isn't perfect, the revenue split isn't fair. The travel situation was a disaster until they finally got charter flight. But it's also the only professional women's basketball league in America that's lasted more than a few seasons. It's backed by the NBA, it has network television deals, it has infrastructure. Unrivaled has momentum and excitement, and a great first impression. But momentum isn't sustainability. The players deserve more money, they deserve a better revenue split, they deserve to be valued appropriately for the product they're creating. But they also need to be realistic about what leverage they actually have. Because if they overplay their hand, and the season gets canceled, who suffers most? Not the owners, not the executives. The players, the ones who need that WNBA salary to make their mortgage payments. The ones who don't have Unrivaled equity or endorsement deals. Fee's got hers, but what about the player making the league minimum? What about the rookie who just got drafted and is counting on that salary? What about the veteran on her last contract, trying to secure her pension? Those players can't afford a missed season. And using Unrivaled's first-year performance to justify an aggressive negotiating stance puts all of them at risk. So here's my question for you. Is Fee right that the WNBA needs to figure out a better business model, or is she overestimating what Unrivaled has actually proven? Because from where I'm sitting, one season of almost breaking even with 36 players in one city doesn't prove that the WNBA's model is broken. It proves that a completely different model can work on a completely different scale. Those aren't the same thing. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you made it this far, hit that subscribe button, because we're covering every angle of the CBA situation as it develops.